Thank you, Ricardo. Quid latine dictum sit, altum viditur. Parmit Maďarul jirnak, mystikus, Hanzik. A jestli budu mluvit tady česky, tak pro mnoha lidí to bude znít jako něco ze Švejka. Und tutto ciò che dico in questa lingua suona come se avessi basilico e ananas sopra. Und jetzt kommen wir langsam zu dem Augenblick, wo immer mehr Leute verstehen, aber es gibt immer noch Leute in diesem Raum, für die das immer so wie Kauderwelsch klingt. And finally, when I switch to English, I hope that everyone will understand, and everyone will finally understand exactly what I want to say, and only remember that before, in all those languages, it was, well, he was trying to fill those 40 minutes time that he has for his talk, and he just speaks to us, and we want to hear the melody of his voice, but, well, nothing more. This is very important to have such content that looks like content, but doesn't mean anything to you. And probably the text that you know and that you expect that I'm going to show you now is this, Lorem ipsum. And you know it so well that now I can tell you that maybe there are 2 typos. And let's say you have 40 minutes to find them. Ricardo tells me that I should talk maybe about myself, but he said already everything. But, well, okay, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, I was born in Czechoslovakia. There are many people who say that Czechoslovakia, but, well, it doesn't exist anymore. But, well, I was not born now. I was born more than 30 years ago. And for those younger who have never used Python 2.5 and don't know what Czechoslovakia is, let me tell you that, well, we are now here in Berlin, that is Germany. Well, east, west, well, sorry. So, we are in Berlin. Now there is Germany, and in those times there was East Germany and West Germany. And Berlin was also East Berlin and West Berlin. And Czechoslovakia was here, but it was like from here until here, and there was Soviet. Are you following me? So there was Soviet Union behind it, and then from Czechoslovakia, when we wanted to go to sea, there was Baltic Sea, and there was Adriatic. You are still looking for the typos? Okay. So, and, well, that was all the history, but then I studied somewhere in France, lived in Germany, Austria, now I'm in Austria, and my job is actually, as Ricardo said, using Python to make the sun shine and the wind blow. Because, well, I'm writing some Python code and make those big things not run, but they run, and I analyze all the data and predict and forecast and hintercast and do plenty of stuff with them. Well, if you want to move to the talk, of course, there is always some sort of disclaimer, and I have now prepared this. Well, this is the only slide that I have not prepared. I have asked this word that nobody pronounces, says to write this text for me. But, well, nobody reads terms of service, so let's just click on proceed, accept. Okay, now it works. So, you have seen this Lorem ipsum text, and now let's test our virtual software that is responsible to put this text into some column, because nobody reads columns like that. You know why LaTeX always makes columns narrow, because people are able to read up to 70 or 80 characters in a line before they switch to the next line. You cannot just read text across the whole screen. And it looks good. You can recognize at the beginning this Lorem, ipsum. So, well, our software works until we write another paragraph in German. Well, you see that there is one word that is a little bit longer. It means that actually our test has failed because the word is too long and our software doesn't support word splitting, word splitting. And there is also another problem, but for that you cannot look at the text like this. You have to really see the text in the original form, and this is this. Our software doesn't support umlauts. And that's why Lorem ipsum is not good placeholder text for your German, French, Slovak, Hungarian text, because you don't know whether the umlauts are working. So you see that in this case, there was a fallback font that shows all the umlauts in a different, like Italy case for this example. So you have to know that you cannot use Lorem ipsum for your text. And this is not only German. Well, you recognize actually immediately that it is German because of the long words. And now we are already trained to recognize the languages only looking at them like this. So this is an extract from a big dictionary that contains some very malicious errors. And now you can tell me, okay, the first sentence is in English. The second one is actually the other language of that dictionary that I'm talking about, and you will recognize what I'm talking about. The second language is Hungarian. You see already words that are a little bit longer. The third one, who knows? That's German, of course, very long words. The fourth one, the words are a little bit shorter. There are less vowels, and there is some noise around the letters. Looks like Czech. The fifth one, many short words. What is it? Tokipona, I will show you. The next one, you see these punches in the face with the square characters, black ones. That looks like Chinese. And the next one, that's a little bit lighter. You see the structures, that is Korean. And the last one, who knows? That's Burmese. So you see that you have already immediately, like you see the text and you can recognize which language it is, even without knowing the words or knowing the script. Probably many of you know that this comes from a dictionary that was erroneous. Actually, the second phrase should be something like, I would like to buy a box of matches. Translations are difficult. They are difficult, but you cannot translate the words exactly how they are. Sometimes you need to add some context to them. Who knows the book Little Prince, Le Petit Prince, and to understand Exupéry? I also have this book at home. In the chapter 4, there is a short paragraph about adults who don't understand if you tell them, oh, I have seen a house with red bricks and flowers and everything. You have to tell them, I have seen a house that costs 100,000 francs. And then they understand. And now if you randomly take these different language versions of this book, not all houses are at the same price. Most of them cost 100,000, but sometimes in Netherlands they cost gulden. The cheapest house are in Italy. They are 100,000 lira. I don't have a translation with euro until now. And I think in Turkey they cost already in direction of millions. So if you translate text, then of course you have to set it into some context. Context is very difficult. This is not the content that is king, context is the king. Also for such translations, this is my backpack, very nice backpack. The only problem is I don't know where it has been produced, because the first line says it has been made in Vietnam, but all other languages said it has been produced in China. So sometimes you shouldn't even exaggerate it with translations. So this is, can you recognize the languages? I would say the first one looks like English. The second one with the uppercase H, that must be German. And the third one, oui, that's French. I'm really wondering that they called it USB and not BSU, with all their abbreviations like Union Européenne, OTAN, And even in technical senses, like I have studied computer sciences in France, even some technical abbreviations are inversed. Any Finnish speakers here? I always wanted to know what tione, sormi, kurkun, lepi means. You can put it into Google Translate or some DeepL or whatever, but these translations are sometimes wrong. What you have seen before with this backpack made in China, Vietnam, and so, if a few years ago you tried to translate some sentences in Google Translate, and for example, it was the sentence, I speak English. It has been translated into German as Ich spreche Deutsch, oder Je parle français. So always in the local language. Why? Because usually this machine learning takes the materials from many official resources. And where are good official resources? These are, for example, the text of the law text of the European Union. And you have a long English text that has been really very correctly translated into French, but on the top of the English text is English version, and on the top of the French text is la version française. And the machine thinks, okay, English, française, so I have to translate it this way. This sentence is probably nothing special in Finnish, but if you translate it to some other language, for example, Czech, you will understand why Czechs don't use random password generators. They throw darts at books. Strč prst skrz krk, so put your finger in your throat. And this sentence has been chosen and translated into other languages in an open source, open data portal called tatoeba.org. Anyone knows Tatoeba? I strongly recommend you to have a look at it. If you want to learn another language or you are interested in, and you would like maybe even to contribute, because this is what I would like to encourage you to do, this portal is a collection of sentences, of many sentences in any language. And what people do, they go there and they have an account and they say, okay, I am a native speaker of, let's say, in my case, Czech and Slovak, and I speak at good level, I mean, English, German, French, and so on. And then it shows me sentences that have been, random sentences that have been written in, for example, English, and that are missing a Czech or Slovak translation. And with my human ability to translate into my native language, I can translate it and edit there. So I have edited already a few dozens or hundreds sentences. And you can also use this website also to search for a word. And this is open data. It means that if you want to write a software that needs a lot of data in both languages or more languages, you can download. You can tell, I want a pair of German and Swahili, or Turkish and Estonian. And it will find all sentences that have been translated by someone in both languages, and you can download a CSV file with all these sentences. They are not 100% correct, but, well, people are people, they make errors, and there may be some, of course, some errors, but you can improve them if you speak your language, of course, at a native level. I have said context is king. This is completely wrong sentence. You cannot walk out of this room, go to some shop here in Berlin, and tell this to a shop assistant. There is one word that is missing. What did your mother tell to you before? Always use that word. For those few who don't, well, there are, of course, people who don't understand German, this means this. So if you read it like die in hell, and it just means I would like those, maybe shoes, in a brighter color. You cannot imagine how many words are there out there that mean something else in a different context. So we have 26, okay, for example, in Slovak language we have 43 letters, but count with me, how many different words can you produce using 5, 6, 7, 8 letters? So it's 26 to the power of 6. That's not that much, and it has to be pronounceable. So I don't mean about Czech, but I mean it has to be pronounceable. And there is one website called Wiktionary, where you can just type a word, a sequence of letters, and it will tell you a list of all languages where you can find this word with all grammatic antonym, synonym, etymology, all cases and everything. And for example, in our case, D in hell can mean also something else in different languages. I find it very interesting. I don't speak Norwegian, but in Norwegian, all three words mean something. Yeah, D or die is to breastfeed. The second word in many languages means like it is in fashion, and the last one, hell, means luck in Norwegian. So you see that context is very important, and you have, if you see some words, you cannot just tell, okay, this is a stop word, because in some other language it can mean something normal. You cannot tell someone whose last name means maybe something offensive in your language. This can be a normal word in other language, and it is their right to be named like that. Names of people cannot be invalid. Let's get back to English. This is normal English phrase, but even if you cannot probably read the verse exactly, you see that there is exactly one word that looks differently. Why? You can read that, because on screen I cannot read it, but okay. So now you see. Now you see that there are two types of highlighting. There is bold and italic. And bold is something that has to be visible immediately in the whole text, on the whole page. So you see the page, and if it is bold, you see it immediately. So if you want to highlight something only when reading, please use italic. There is also other sort of syntax. This is also English sentence, but you see that the first letter is not capital. Why? Because, and this is something that you will see also in documentation, technical documentation, there are plenty of products, of projects that are lowercase, and even if they are at the beginning of the phrase, they are written in lowercase. And if we move from human languages to programming languages, look at it and you can immediately recognize which programming languages are that. The first is Python 3, the second one without parentheses, that's Python 2. Then we have Shell, C, and the last one, okay, I was not so nice, but that's, that's Java. It's a little bit more verbose. This was, without seeing too much, you see the first one is assembler, the second one, brainfuck, and now comes the third one that is not hello world, but may mean something different. What is this? That's Perl, very probably. Because statistically, 93% of paint splatters are valid Perl programs. There was someone who ran OCR over these images, and the images were valid. Okay, so that was enough fun. Now let's get to something serious, to some programming. If we want random data, we need, of course, some random number. For example, at the beginning, let's start with numbers, some random number generator. It works. It is not Python, but it works all the time. If you want to do something like that in Python, of course, from the standard library, you import random and then random rand int, and you get a random integer. So, by chance, again, a 4. This rand in explicitly returns a random integer between beginning and end, or you can use rand range, and it doesn't include the end. Because integers are no problem. They are every one step there is one integer, and if I say I want between 1,000 and 2,000, there are 1,000 integers, and I get them. But there is no rand float, and sometimes I need a rand float. Why is there no rand float function? Because you don't want to get a random float number. Random float numbers are not divided uniformly. A random float number, a 64-bit number, is stored in the computer using 64 bits. The first one is for plus minus, then exponent. Exponent says in which sector of 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, 16, or the other way around, like between half and 1, quarter and half, and so on. We are, the number is stored, and fraction is very quite exact place within this sector. So it means that if I say I want a random number between 0 and 1, random float, then between half, there are exactly as many float numbers between 0, 5, and 1 as between 0, 0, 0, 0, something, and 0, 0, 0, 0, something a little bit more. So you don't want a random number, you want to use uniform and that explicitly says, I give you some float number that represents some number that is between minimum and maximum. And of course, it is very important to take the right number type for your needs. So for example, if you have number of items, you have to use integer or fraction. Remember, there are 60 minutes in an hour, not 60.0 minutes in an hour. You needed that in Python too, because you cannot divide 100 minutes by 60, because then you receive an integer 1. Now, if you divide integer by integer, you get a float, so that's what you want. Floats are for measurements of physical measurements of units, where you don't mind whether this table is 1 meter or 1 meter and 0.01 micron tall. And the most important things that can cost you a lot of money are the finances. What type are you going to use for finances? Fraction! No. Exactly what your tax authorities use. You want to get exactly the same cents at the end as they get, and then it's fine. You don't want, it doesn't matter that you lose cents at the beginning. You don't want to lose thousands at the end. About the measurements in units, well, we have meter, but meter is also approximately. And this is in one museum in central Germany, Museum of Measurements, where you pay entrance according to your weight, or you pay flat rate. So you can decide whether you want to be weighted at the beginning or you just pay a little bit more. And these are all the L's, I think it is called L's, like the length, in different cities in Germany many years ago. So every city had their own standard before they moved to meter. If we want to get some random numbers, we usually don't want to get numbers between minimum and maximum exactly. For example, this is a height distribution of some persons in some country, no matter what. And the blue line would be like, I want random numbers between 140 and 180. But the population doesn't look like that. It looks more like the red line. So many people are in the middle, and some are taller, smaller, but most people are somewhere in the middle. And for that, there is random, not random uniform, but random Gauss. And with the mu and sigma, you can get these numbers quite well. In the other direction, if you want actually to get this mu and sigma for this Gauss, what is it called? Standardverteilung. Then you can use the statistics module and give all the heights, and it will give you this, these two numbers. Then we have some other events. For example, we have some events. So there are some events, for example, 240 events per 8 hours, and we would like to know how often something happens. This means that, of course, there is one customer or one event every 2 minutes. And for that, there is again something in random module, expovariate, where you say 1 divided by the length of each average event, and this will give you the distribution, how often something happens. And there are plenty of other models or other functions that will give you good functions to get the information that you need. Use them. Use them, try to learn them, try to learn a little bit of statistics, and use the right model for your job. All models are wrong, but some models are useful. Now we want to get a little bit to the GDPR. So we want to use names, and you cannot just take a phone book from somewhere and use it in your tests. Let's take the most common names in Germany: male, female, last names, places, the most popular name, places, and we want to find some persons. So you can take, like, sample, give me a sample of 5 cities, and it will give you 5 cities. But how many people are here from Berlin? There is not one person from Berlin. There are maybe many people from Berlin, many people from Karlsruhe, Lingen, whatever. No? So name and position, city, and so on, it is not the primary key. There can be several Noah Müller from Berlin or Emilia Schmidt from Köln. That's why you want to take choices. It means that you allow more places, to get one place several times. But again, there are probably not 7 people from Lingen here. So there are more people from Berlin. We want to have some population weight, and in that case, you can use the choices and the attribute parameter weights that gives you, for example, the population, so we have more people from bigger cities. Noah, Emilia, Sophia, Finn, and so on, that looks nice, but people have different names. And my name cannot be invalid, but you see that you have also to take into account names that look a little bit differently and print them correctly. And even names that look like ASCII, not too short, not too long, but still they may cause problems to airlines, because usually they put MR at the end for misters, but they don't know if the person is already called Amr, should they put it there or not. Names of places like E or are also some extreme cases. And now if you want to find such a place, then of course you can go to take this, but well, I wouldn't do that, because you see Rwanda and Burundi, over 20 million inhabitants, they cover 6 square degrees, and on the South Pole, where there is almost none population, you see only here 360, 360, 360, so over 1,000 of such squares. So if you get a random position, then this can be really wrong. But for that, there are maps online. Well, you don't want to use some commercial maps because all you can do is there, like click somewhere and it navigates you there. You want to use some better maps. There is OpenStreetMap. OpenStreetMap is not a map, it's a database. And what you see here, this is probably what you see when you go to OpenStreetMap. There is something, but there is much more in it. You can open a map that is for cyclists with the information about all the tracks, about the safety on the tracks, bridges, and accessibility for bicycles. You can have a look at ÖPNV, that's like public transport maps with exact routes and position of stops. Then very technical maps of railways with all the details about speed, about the switches. Then 3D maps of cities, because the buildings have also their information about what is in the buildings, about the technical infrastructure, power plants, and sea maps. This is a nice map for people who want to drive bike on curving roads, because it can calculate actually from the data how the road looks like. This is for wheelchair, so you know which places are accessible. And also you have some routing, and this is very strong routing, because you can define exactly what you want. You want to go by steps, you want such paved roads, not paved roads, and it will show you exactly where to go, whether you are on bicycle, walking, or motorbike, or something like that. So everything is in the map, like in the database, and there are plenty of services that just extract the information that they need. Even on apps on your phone you can have that. And there is a website where you can extract this information. So for example, this is my favorite institution, are all the hairdressers, and I wanted to see what are the names of the hairdressers here in Berlin. Well, there are really some nice names that people give to their companies. And here you say, okay, you want in Berlin, it should be a note that has attribute shop hairdresser, and I want the name, and it shows it. Then here, even on that page of Overpass Turbo, you can ask for a map of all banks in Berlin, all police stations. And you can combine this information. Banks, police stations, no, you want them far away from each other. And here are all the banks that are more than 2 kilometers from the nearest police station. This is Vienna, beautiful city. Anyone has been to Vienna? Oh, okay. So you know there are plenty of restaurants. So you can ask to find all the restaurants, and there are plenty of attributes, like do they have internet, microbrewery. Oh, there are not so many breweries, but they have toilets, of course, toilets, internet, vegan, so some sorts of cuisine and so on. And maybe, okay, something that I would wish to ask OpenStreetMap, and that even works, if you ask all the restaurants in Vienna that will serve brown sauce on your schnitzel. That's wonderful. Okay, now let's do some interaction. Who thinks, how many stop signs, like the octagonal stop signs, are there on public roads in Paris? Who thinks there are more than 100? Clap. Once. 200? 300? Clap once. 500? 600? 700? 1,000? 1,500? 2,000? That is better than eBay. 3,000? 4,000? Okay, that was the right answer. There are none. And Paris, this is like, I mean, Paris is like really the city, not the surroundings. But this is really like that. A few years ago, I was at a conference, invited to a postgrad school conference in Paris, and they told me, oh, we have a nice hotel for you. It's called like this. Really, there is a hotel called Hotel Paris France. You cannot find it looking normally on Booking or whatever, but OpenStreetMap, you say, I want a hotel that is named Hotel Paris France, and you will find it. French, they really love hotels because there are hotels of the company De Ville. No, this is City Hall. Hotel de Ville is City Hall. Hotel de Police is a police station, and Hotel Dieu is a hospital. At the beginning of OpenStreetMap, I have actually seen many foreign mappers who just entered all these institutions like accommodation places. Sometimes it is, of course, difficult to navigate. And sometimes it can be even difficult to find the right place. This is definitely not in Paris. But hey, I'm not talking only what OpenStreetMap can do for you. I want you to do something for OpenStreetMap. The minimum that you can do, you can go to openstreetmap.org, look around your place you know, and if you see something in the map that doesn't work, that is wrong, then you just click on the green plus add note, new note, and then you click there and you write a note. So, of course, the highway, the motorway not found, the city nearby also not found. No. And also, you shouldn't map everything that looks like a motorway. This is Passdorfer Autobahn near Vienna. You can also, if you want to like walk around, that's fine for the health. You can go to or add an app called Street Complete for Android, and it will just show you your surroundings, and it will ask you questions about information that is already in the database, but it is not complete. There are some things missing, like opening times of shops, the surface of some roads, and so on. Or, if also for iPhone, there is Every Door app on the right side that you can really edit a lot of stuff. Random shuffle, that means that, well, this is, again, programming. If you want to use Python to randomly shuffle your lists, then there is a limit, because of course you can shuffle like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements, but then it increases quickly. And it's a factorial. And there is a limit. If your list is more than 2080 elements, then it will get to the limit of a random number generator, and you will not be able to get any combination of them, because there is Mersenne twister, and this is the number that Python is using, and this is actually the maximum number of combinations that you can use in your generator, random number generator. And after all this is extinguished, it will start again from zero. So just don't forget that after a few years, centuries of running your programs, it will return the same numbers. For dates, you shouldn't do that, like random months, year, and so on, because every month is a different length, and there are leap years, and everything. Just do random number timestamp in UTC, not in local time, and then convert it to your local time, because, well, time zones are difficult. These are all the worldwide time zones. If you look at it like this, 0 is Greenwich, to the west, to the east, and this is over the past, over 1 century, every time zone that has moved with all the summertime and so on. If you do prepare data with times, then make sure that this is consistent. This is a motivational poster with 4 young people standing around the desk looking somewhere and doing some project management. Their watches are not synchronous. If you do give your models expensive watches, then make sure that they show the same time. Who remembers this? What does this program do? This is not Python. This is Commodore Basic. And it was the cheapest program to create a random maze. You can do that in Python as well. Maze is also like some nice test data to test, for example, for path searching. If you remember Roller Coaster Tycoon, if you created something like this, then at every crossroad, the person with very large probability was returning and never going further. If you do it larger, longer, it can take more time, more time until very long time. Colors, don't do random colors in RGB, do they in HSV and then convert them because this is something more natural for us. Or go to colornames.org where we have the 16 million colors. You can find the color and then people can give names to these colors. So for example, one very famous color is C0FFEE, and people have given it names. So if you need some random names for colors, or you search, for example, for Python, for the word Python, then it will find some colors that are called after Python, maybe after logo or something different. And if in your code you really need some random data, there are two nice libraries called Faker and Mimesis. Both of them work in a similar way. You just say in which language you want some random data, and it will give you like names, addresses, numbers, produces, job descriptions, telephone numbers, email addresses, and so on. Well, Mimesis works similar, and there is still something that you can do, actually, because if you look here, this is the piece of code that generates names of companies in German. They only take last name or two last names and company suffix, but if you want to create company's name, for example, Saftladen and everything in big letters, then of course it's better to, it's possible actually to add such functionality there, so if you want to contribute, then do that. Okay, so we have faked almost everything. Can we fake really everything? You can fake videos, pictures, music, everything. There is one thing that modern science has no answer to. It's really computationally very difficult to fake passwords. We are coming to the end. So it's your job to write code, to prepare the test data. Be responsible for that and try to understand what you are working on, what the data is, where it comes from. There are, of course, tools or even some services that give you any data that you want in any form, but if you leave it to them, then you don't have the power over what you are working on and what you want to accomplish. And the best about our job is that we are paid to learn the whole time. So that's the fun. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Miro, for a nice presentation. We didn't get any questions in Slido. Maybe I forgot to mention that we are using today as well. But I'll try to reach you. If you raise your hand, if you have any questions, I'll go to you. So we have still 5 minutes for questions.
Or I am around the whole day. So I would be happy really to speak about the topic.
We have one here.
What is it you're working on right now, and what would you work on if you could choose anything?
Is the camera on? There are plenty of things, but I'm playing a lot with, in my free time, playing a lot with the OpenStreetMap, like searching for consistencies, inconsistencies in the data. And what's nice about it is also that I don't do it only on my computer at home, but I also get to the places. So for example, that little piece of the motorway, it was really randomly, I was driving around and it was written like future excavations, future archaeologies. Of course, it was like an artwork, but it was a nice idea in the middle of nothing, like to create a hole with a motorway. So this way, it's possible to go to nice places, and if one could be even paid for that.
Anyone else with questions? I see there's some coming Slido now. Don't be shy, you can ask. No hands, so let me go to the first one in Slido. How did you learn so many natural languages?
Some people have many stars in GitHub. Some people sit at home or travel a bit, and well, okay, as I told, my father tongue is Czech, my mother tongue is Slovak, which means that all surroundings are bigger languages. So for me, it is like really big exception or surprise, even now, if I meet someone who is a foreigner who is learning Czech or Slovak and speaks it at a good level, because I am actually used to the most widespread language in the world, like my bad English or bad German and so. And that's why people from such countries, if they live abroad a little bit, are more motivated to learn the local language and not to think that everyone understands Slovak.
Where are the typos in the Lore ipsum?
There were none. But I was like glad to see that you got interested in that and people are really like looking at that and searching for the typos.
I keep going through the Slido. What do you find the hardest about wind power forecasting?
It's sometimes when you like drive in the countryside, near Vienna, there are plenty of them in the direction of Hungarian and Slovak border. There are hundreds of them, and when you see that some of them are still like not moving, some of them are moving at different speed, you think that, okay, everything that I calculated is wrong because I cannot know whether something is going to happen and to be maintained and whether they are going to work or not.
Do you miss anything from the good old times of Python 2.5?
I will never be that young again.
Are you an NLP expert?
What is NLP?
It's lots of questions coming now. How do you make the sun shine with Python?
Well, there are wind turbines and there are solar panels that have to be maintained and worked on as well.
Let me see one more question. What's the next hot topic in Python that you personally want to dig?
The next feature of Python?
The next hot topic.
A hot topic of Python. When is the next PyCon? We'll have some time for that. We'll find something.
I'll take one more question. Let me see here. Do you know the meaning of your last name?
Yes. And if you look at me, you will recognize it immediately. In Czech and Slovak, it is a normal word that means gray-haired.
All right. Miro, thanks again.
Thank you.
For sharing.